Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday afternoon, and because of the holiday, we are just a little behind schedule with the videos and the introduction to the week when the review of the week before. But I'm pleased to tell you I am on schedule with the grading. So the first week's discussion has been graded and put out there. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. As you may discover, I go very much by the rubric, and as I explained a little bit in the previous video, what I'm looking for. But what we really like to see, like I said, is a lot of interaction, a lot of critical thought, not so much reporting, but analyzing and understanding what the material is all about. And to be very frank with you, the discussion was very good. And you can expect the ones as we go further into the material become maybe just a little bit more difficult, a little bit more detailed, and a little bit more down in the weeds. This was a little bit of an organizational introduction, and we looked back at what you can almost call living history in front of us when we looked at the hunter-gatherer tribe. And the whole point of that was to look back and say, okay, this has been going on for literally decades, maybe millennia, how people have come together in groups to accomplish specific purposes. And in the case of our tribe that we looked at, the Hazda, they're still working on survival. And sometimes it's tough for us in a more developed society, especially with a lot of technology at our disposal, to think about things in terms that are so simplistic that they seem actually amazing. Wow, this is really simple. Why didn't I think of that? Well, guess what? Most organizations at their core are that simple. It's just the tools that we have to make them work, make them complex, and how we handle our use of those tools and our understanding of how those can either enhance or sometimes detract from our organizational design, our organizational behavior. It's a very interesting concept. And remember, organizations are collections of people. We are some of the most complex creatures that you will ever see, and I can't think of anything more complex than the human brain. And it works in strange ways, and it works differently for all of us, doesn't it? So these are some introductory things that you saw. And where are we going with week 2? We're going into now a bit of a history lesson, so to speak, in terms of the discussion. But in the materials and the discussion, what we're looking at now is more developed organizational forms. Okay? And we're studying kind of the hierarchy. We're studying how organizations are put together. And frequently, what we're going to look at, and I think you might want to consider this in the back of your mind as you're going through everything this week, is, are organizations a response to their conditions, or are they created in one way and then have to go in and adapt themselves to new conditions? Because frankly, the one thing, it's a cliche, isn't it, that the one constant is actually change? And we live in a time where change is just absolutely the only thing we can count on being a constant, and probably have lived through more change in the last 50 years than maybe in the previous 500. So when you look at our discussion this week about that time period that really spans a whole big part of my life as a child of the 1950s, it's something I learned to live with. It's something I have experience of. Many of you haven't had it. It also has a little bit of a military overtone to it, so I think a lot of our service members in the class are going to have a very interesting perspective, and I'm eager to hear yours. But what it really is, in the end, don't focus too much on the history lesson. Focus on the idea of how do organizations change with changing circumstances. And what happens? Is it easy? We're going to get into the next part in a few weeks when we talk about some things like revolutionary change versus evolutionary change. But here you want to concentrate on how are the structures that are required today may be different than the structures that were required 50 years ago, 40 years ago, even 30 years ago. And that's the time frame you're looking in. And when we talk about the Cold War, the real expansive time is from it's actually the end of the Second World War start of the Korean War around 1950, right up to about 1990 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. That's what the history books will tell us, but the after effects are still here, and it's a I think it's a very interesting discussion. I do hope you all did take a few minutes, I know it's lengthy, but to watch the video from midweek last week where I explained some of my reasoning for doing some of the things that I do and how I would like to see things done. Believe me, it's not just to make work for people or anything like that, or to make it easier for anybody, including me. It's actually to get some sound pedagogical reasons out there. We really want to have discussions. We really want people to have an exchange of views, and we really want expansive thought. That's what this is all about. This is a 400 level course. And for instance, when I said earlier, just don't write that question in because it boxes your thinking into that question. That's kind of the essence of it. All right? Let your mind go. Wildly? No. But in an orderly fashion, think about the consequences of some of the things you see, recommend, want to see changed, want to see done. It has very great significance every time we do something in an organization. Believe me. Things that seem simple may have tremendous ramifications. Things that seem very complex and very major sometimes get accepted like, yep, why haven't we done that a long time ago? So this is the kind of thing you want to be able to come out and discern. All right, I was generally pleased with the discussion last week. I want everyone to understand that, as I said when I opened this little video here, go a lot by the rubric, go back in, make sure you go to the rubric and see what score was actually checked there. I did, I believe, all the comments in the base comments, so I did not comment on specific rubric sections, but I think you'll be able to follow through and see where you did really well and some places where I think we can do even better. But on the whole, I think it's really good. Just remember, it does get a little bit more complex and a little harder as it goes along, because this is not a survey course. This is an in-depth course about a very specific topic. The other thing I want you to know is I will make every effort to get the week 1 papers graded tomorrow, Wednesday. And Wednesday is my general target for having papers and other assignments that come up graded. The big reason there is I want you to have the benefit of the feedback before you get too deeply into doing the next week's assignment, because frequently they build on each other. And if you start jumping ahead too soon and then there's some commentary that you could use, you're just creating work for yourself. So in some sense, it's a case of be a little bit patient. I will do my best to get it to you on Wednesday, certainly no later than Thursday, so that you have time to review and time to use that commentary in preparing your new work. That's what I have for today. I hope everybody did have a chance to have at least somewhat of a relaxing holiday weekend. It's such an odd time. I honestly can't tell you. I don't know what relaxing is anymore, and I'm sure that's true for all of us. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to this week. This is where we get, as I said, a little more specific and maybe a little more directed in some of our discussions and some of our reading. I've emphasized the discussion, but really do the reading before you go into the discussion board. That will help you too. Okay, if there are any questions, I think everybody knows where to get me, and thank you very much.